So this is the process we set out with in December of this past year, and we're culminating with in this night. And I'm going to just walk through that briefly then. We first started with a preliminary working group who met over 2 months in February and March, and their goal was to put together an options paper. This laid out the key decisions that would need to be made by an external working group and explained all of our research to date to help them to make those decisions. It was led by a team of our staff and volunteers, as well as 4 external environmental professionals who helped guide the way for us. This is the crux of the options paper, which has been available up on our website since March, and it is still there if you'd like to take a look. In short, it laid out 3 key decisions that would need to be made. First, we need to decide what is going to count when we talk about carbon emissions. Next, how are we going to rank companies that participate? And then last, how ambitious are we going to be with the dates we seek to accomplish this, and what levels, what reduction levels are we going to seek to achieve within this timeline? So this challenge was then presented to our external working group. This group met every 2 weeks from March until May, and their goal was to come to consensus on a carbon reduction framework for future participants or pledging partners of our organization. We were so very lucky to have 10 members from local industry participate and 3 each from government, academia, and NGOs. These individuals volunteered their time once every 2 weeks. They met on Tuesdays at 7:30 in the morning to talk about these very intricate things I just finished speaking to. We had folks from Quarry Integrated Communications. We had DALSA participate, OpenText. Christie was participating in the process. The City of Kitchener, the City of Waterloo, the Region of Waterloo, the University of Waterloo, as well as some of our environmental not-for-profit partners, REAP, CREW, as well as the David Suzuki Foundation. Together, this group really laid out in a very participatory and a very transparent process, they laid out then the framework within companies are now going to commit to reducing their carbon emissions. I need to take a second to give a big thanks to the City of Kitchener for providing in-kind space for this process. Thanks to Sean Goby, our volunteer who facilitated the entire process. Of course, I can't see Sean right now. There he is, thank you. And to the participants. Those were early mornings. So thank you so much for coming out and being a part of this process. So what did we come up with then? Well, here's some elements of it. This is kind of the backbone of it then. First of all, in terms of what organizations are going to report, mandatory reporting is going to include what is called Scope 1 emissions, and this is terminology from the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. Scope 1 emissions are on-site emissions, so any emissions that result from an organization's building. Scope 2 emissions as well will be included, and this is as a result of indirect purchased electricity. Scope 3 emissions are those that are directly attributed to organizations, but as a result of equipment and vehicles that are not company-owned or controlled. And at the very least, we're going to have organizations report on business travel. In addition, we're also going to allow organizations to choose whether they want to also report on their Scope 3 emissions, including commuting travel, emissions from waste, and greenhouse gas emissions from water as well. Geographically, the minimum is going to be that organizations report on all their facilities within Waterloo, and we're going to allow them to expand beyond there as well. From a reporting perspective, organizations are going to have a choice to report either their absolute total emissions or their intensity-based emissions. That is to say, emissions that are per unit of production. What this does is really allows us to be as inclusive as possible to organizations that might be going through a very large growth period. In addition, we're going to have each organization that participates at least report their absolute emissions, although they might be ranked according to absolute or intensity-based. Baselines will go as far back as 2006, and if I haven't bored you too much with this yet, offsets will be also permissible up to 49% of the framework. So that's the backbone then. The more eye-catching part is the part that talks about what reduction dates and levels. And so we have our gold, silver, and bronze levels here. Every 2 years are soft checkpoints for organizations to work towards, and the one we will more publicly talk about is this 10-year commitment. At the bronze level, a 20% or higher commitment, silver 40% or higher, and at the gold level, 60% reductions or higher. Again, this is in our reduction framework we have here, and I need to take another aside here to give a really big thank you to Matthew Day. Matthew is our greenhouse gas services lead. He has been leading this process since the beginning, first as a volunteer, and now thankfully as staff. He's done a tremendous job throughout this process, really poured everything he has into it, and we're very proud of the document you have in front of you and available up on our website. Matthew's right there. Now, before I move on, though, I need to be clear about how groundbreaking this framework really is. No other community we know of is doing this kind of work. It's very much inspired by what Silicon Valley's done, but it's gone a step further. It was entirely community-led. We've always said we didn't want to be telling the community what the reduction targets are going to be, and I'm so proud to now be here today to tell you that after this process, we have a framework within which the community really allowed us to come up with. I think as a region, this is exciting for us to be working with, and I know that communities across Canada are going to be looking to us for expertise on how we put this together, and so I'm really excited about that. So there's our framework, the guide's in front of you. With that in place, we now need to talk about how we're actually going to help companies commit to reducing their carbon emissions. So this is maybe a bit of a tired slide that some folks have seen before in some presentations in the back seats of cars. But we've always talked to, we want to help companies measure their emissions with a tool, give them opportunities to learn about how to reduce their emissions, connect them with the environmental professionals in our community that can do it, and recognize them as a third-party, credible, not-for-profit organization. Well, we've done all of that, and we've partnered with a fantastic organization called E3 Solutions, many of whom are here with us today. Behind me is a screenshot of the user dashboard of the tool, and what this is an opportunity to have organizations measure their carbon emissions in a very robust way. Some of their largest clients include FedEx and Maple Leaf Sports, but also we knew we wanted to make sure that organizations had a simple way to input data and use the tool. The tool has these great PDF forms that make it really easy just to input your energy usage, and we can then translate that into exactly what greenhouse gas that is. And that whole process is documented again in the guide up on our website that Matthew worked so hard on. So there's our tool that we're happy to be providing to pledging partners. In addition, we're running these educational events, and there's two types. First of all, educational forums. As I look across the room, many of you were at our first educational breakfast forum in January of this past year. We had Lori Duval from Sun Microsystems talk about what they've done, much as Paul talked about here tonight, but what they've done to reduce their emissions by 36% over the past 2 years, and both how and why they did that. And this is exactly what we want future educational breakfast forums to look like. In addition, we're going to be hosting technical workshops on a quarterly basis to not only educate on the best practices for how to reduce emissions, but talk about the technical expertise required to do that, and have environmental professionals come up and speak about how to do a greenhouse gas inventory or how to do an energy audit. And that will be starting in September of this year. In addition, we've talked a lot about this environmental directory, and we're happy to launch our environmental directory today. The goal here is to connect the many environmental professionals with the pledging partners who are looking to reduce their carbon emissions. This directory is actually also going to be available to the entire community, and certain elements of it will be restricted only to participants of the Regional Carbon Initiative, but we're happy also to provide this as a resource to the entire community. And here's just one example of an organization in the directory now, and it's available up on our website as well. We're definitely looking to continue to increase the size of the directory, and we'll be doing that over the next few months. Last is the public recognition piece, and it's important that we are able to speak about the measured reductions we're seeing in organizations across Waterloo region. We'll be doing so in our first CO2 report that's going to be coming out in February of next year, and documenting exactly the progress we've seen within pledging partners over the past year. Last, membership. We want to, again, be as inclusive as possible. And so we're going to be welcoming pledging partners who will commit to reductions in their carbon emissions and receive all the services I just spoke about, but also observing organizations who might want to get their feet wet a bit, try out the tool, come to these events, and then maybe over time commit to a reduction in their carbon emissions. And we're really excited to have that open now.